Okay, welcome to the Dallas chapter of the FileMaker Pro User Group. I'm Taylor Sharp, and we're glad to have everybody here on a nice, wonderful Friday, starting off September, just before our Labor Day weekend. Today, we're going to have a FileMaker presentation by Gerard Beutler, a friend of mine that I've gotten to know through the various uh, DevCons and some of his projects that he's done, and we've gotten to be friends over the years. So it's been kind of fun keeping up with him, even though he lives way off over there in Florida somewhere. But we're glad to have you here in Texas virtually today. So regarding announcements, if you're a FileMaker Business Alliance, what do we call it now? Claris Partner member. Yeah. You need, yeah. We had a meeting this week, so hopefully you participated in that and you got those announcements, and things are plugging forward with FileMaker. Well, I should say Claris, because they're kind of branching out, I think, trying to do some more things, but I don't know what all's public yet. So anyway, we will see where all these fun things go. Speaking of which, Claris had its Engage, well, what do you call it? Kickoff or kickoff, something like that. Recently, and I think let's see, Wim DeCourt had his session on how to use Ubuntu server with FileMaker server. So those videos are now public. If you haven't seen them, you can avail yourself if that interests you. October, that first week of October is going to be Pause on Air. So I'm going. Heather, who's sitting over here, is going, and a few others of us going. So this is kind of the unconference, or the unofficially sponsored Claris one that's kind of done for the I've never been to it, but I understand it's more for the fun of it, more of very casual, less polished, but probably a little more advanced. So in other words, if you want to do some real technical learning, that's my understanding, but I haven't been, so I will find out shortly, and it will be fun. If you haven't signed up, you have till September 15th if you want to go to Northeast Georgia for Pause on Air. So are there any other Claris announcements out there anybody can think of? No. Without further information from the crowd here, we're going to pass things on to Gerard. Gerard has been doing presentations has been doing FileMaker for a long time, and he's got some interesting presentation. Of course, his presentation, as you can see on the screen, is data grids, Kanbans, and other stuff in WebViewers. And if you've been on the advanced leading edge of FileMaker stuff lately, you've known that more and more stuff's being done in WebViewers and letting us use tools outside of FileMaker. And this is going to be a good example that he's going to get to show off for you. So Gerard, we're going to turn it over to you. Tell us about data grids, Kanbans, and other stuff.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm Gerard Beutler, and I just want to, this is one of the first times that I've done a presentation like this, so bear with me. But I was thinking about how long I've been using FileMaker, and I think I can go back to, say, like 96, 97. I did some stuff with FileMaker and with Lasso, if you guys all remember that. And then I got involved more with FileMaker when I saw, my wife and I did websites back in those times, and I saw a customer that wanted to automate his back office, and he was in the real estate business, and we did I was able to work with him with FileMaker on an Xserve, with FileMaker Server, and whatever FileMaker was being done in about 2000. And at that time we were taking stuff out of, we were using FileMaker as the storage location and taking stuff out of it, creating Excel spreadsheets, creating presentations in Word with AppleScript, and creating PDFs and uploading them to the web server. So, and on that particular one, I was lucky to get a spotlight on me by Apple, because I was part of the Apple Solutions Network at that time, and they did a spotlight on me for that. Then moving on, I started, we had a customer in the web business that, I mean, when we were doing our web business, that was a pool builder. And they, at that time, that was in 2004, they were building like 400 to 500 pools a year, and they wanted to do some office automation. And they contacted me plus some other folks. And I guess I was fortunate enough to present to them that we should use FileMaker. And that's how I got involved in using FileMaker with our Pool Pro Office project back in 2005. So that's a little bit about where I've come from and what I've been doing. I've had other projects along the way, but this is the one that we are doing a vertical market in. So the objective of this is that one of the more important things in FileMaker is being able to represent your data in a graphical format. And we've been on that quest for quite some time. You can all remember when you used the FileMaker layouts to have a list view of items to create your calendars, and the representative relationship diagram that went with that made your eyes kind of glaze over and kind of wonder, how did I ever get into this thing? So today's presentation is to talk about what I've gone through in developing a calendar and some other stuff such as data grids and Kanbans using outside of FileMaker. And so we started, the first issue of Pool Pro Office did have that list view calendar in it. And it just takes time. It just took time to build. It takes time to load. And so we did that. In 2014, we transitioned to the WebViewer presentation of calendars, and we used a bolt-on solution that we still use to this day. And if you're familiar with that particular one, it has about 200 scripts, 45 layouts in the bolt-on, and plus you can add custom scripts, and I added about 20 of those. So this is not a slim or easy solution to troubleshoot, and that therefore the annual support was support and updates. And so I'll show you how that looks today. But the key thing there is being able to represent data using the web viewer in a calendar view and being able to interact with that. And that's what that third-party bolt-on provided us. But as time went on, for the last 2 years, we've been looking at ways, since the web viewer and the JavaScript became available, we started looking at ways that we could do our calendar presentation with a web viewer and JavaScript. And to begin with, when that was first available in May of 2020, we had some challenges with it, because sometimes we had the challenges with the web view, since probably 95, in our solution, we use the FileMaker Pro on their desktop, so we have to be aware of the Windows issues there that we deal with when we're dealing with the JavaScript. And that was kind of a holdup also, because we started looking at alternatives in May of 2020. We found a solution that provided us some libraries that we could go ahead and be able to do that. And that was the Syncfusion. And what we had there is we have a number of JavaScript components that we can use. So ones that we're going to look at today will be the data grid. We'll be looking at the scheduler, and we'll also be looking at the Kanban. Other things that I've implemented from this list are the rich text editor, and also the calendar, the picker, and some of these pickers in here for the calendars. So some of these have been implemented into Pool Pro Office. The reason why I went with this is they offer all of these items, and we could, they offered a support package that we could go ahead and get technical support in the areas of helping out with me understanding their side, and also being able to, for me to get over some of the hurdles in the JavaScript in the web viewer. And so that's the reason that we went with that. And so that's where we are today. There is a number of things here that I would like to look at in the future, but today we're just going to be looking at those that we have there. So what we did is I started in October of last fall developing the calendar. And within a couple of weeks, I was able to get the data in the right format out of FileMaker and display it into the calendar. But once you got it into that, became the development time to get the interaction with the calendar. In other words, being able to drag and drop an event and have that drag and drop event then do an update in FileMaker. And being able to click on an event, bring up a card window and make changes in the card window, and then be able to close that window and update the calendar. And that's kind of what I'm going to show you a little bit in detail today. Okay, we talked about those. And this is the calendar that we use today. And what we want to be able to do is be able to kind of mimic that and get along to that. And that was our goal, is to be able to mimic this, be able to have the similar interactions and be able to do the filtering on that. So this code is being used in PPO now. The thing is that you can go to the Syncfusion website, that's syncfusion.com, and all of these demos and libraries are open and available. And so you could start building your own web using their libraries of stuff right there. But if you wanted technical support or provide input, then you would have to go with their annual maintenance. And the annual maintenance is reasonably priced. So getting in and showing the data was just a start, and then the heavy lifting began, and that was when doing the dynamics of working with the user interface. So now let's take a look at what we have currently in Pool Pro Office. Okay, sorry about the speed here. But anyhow, this is the calendar, how we have it come up right now. So if we might have some performance issues just because of my machine here. And I haven't been able to figure that out. But anyhow, what we have here is, this is a calendar. We have the abilities to go to a different month. We can go back and forth by the months. We can say we can want a work week, a week, or whatever. We can also take an item and be able to take an item and drag it to the next location. And now we get to, and we'll do a refresh of the screen. And so now we moved it back over there, and it'll refresh. If we want to take it and go ahead and extend it, we can drag that out and we can extend it. If we want to individually take an item and just be able to update it, we can click on it. Brings up the screen. We can go ahead and let's say we want to change the date on this. And again, this pop over here with this, and this is using the date picker from Syncfusion also. So we'll go ahead and we'll change this back to, say, the 31st. And we'll click save. When we save it, it saves it to this screen. And once we do the close and refresh, it will go ahead and take that information and push it into and reload the calendar for us. Now you see that it's shrunk back up. So another thing that we can do within here is we have other calendars that we have here. So if we want to be able to show the work order calendar, we go ahead and we click the filter. And it comes up with a list of the calendars that we have plus the status that we have. So we can say we can want the construction work orders. So now what we can do is do an update to that. And now if you take a look at this, you'll see that we have the little emblems here for the truck are showing that those are for milestones. This is for construction work orders. Now let's say, for example, I wanted to be able to say that I just want everything that's waiting. And I can do an update. And now we have everything that's waiting. Now, if I want to come down here and say that, oh, I only want to see everything that has, for example, we have Dykes and Dombeck and Kilo here. I want to see only things for Dombeck. Now I have the things for Dombeck. So you can see that this is, and Eric Miller, who's online with us here, he can also see this, that this looks very familiar with what he's probably using in his solution also. So, so those are things that we can do. That we can go ahead and we can look at a week. And if you also see at the top here, it tells us what we're looking at, what calendars we're looking at. We're looking at the construction work order, and we're looking at the project. We're looking at a start date from the 12th through the 18th, and the filters are waiting. So now I can go ahead and I'm going to do filters. I'm going to clear those out, and I'm going to come back and just have these two at the week view. And we'll do update. So let's go back a week. So you can see things for next week. And if we go back one more week. And so we have those. So how is this being done? Because right now you can see again, we have the calendars, we have the construction work order, we have the different calendars that we have, the start date, the end date. So when we are clicking on these things here, we are picking up that information from the Syncfusion JavaScript that they have. So what we're doing is, let's say, let's go back and let me bring up, I probably lost, let me see here. Yeah, let me bring up two things here that I want to, the biggest challenge the things I want to show you here is maintaining the perspective of what this calendar is. Because also what I can do is I can come over here and I can create another project calendar. And I want to put that for the month. And now I have two calendars that are mutually exclusive of one another. I can come over to this one now and I can work on this one, because when I open up a window here, or when I click on an event here, it goes ahead and brings with it the information about that particular window. Even though the window's tied, the card is tied with that window, it doesn't know anything about that window, and only that there's a window being shown. So what we're going to do is had this kind of set up, but what we're going to do is we're going to get the key thing here that we're doing is we're getting that information from one to the other. And we're going to do I want to set the format. And we want to get the window name. Because what I'm doing here is, since the window is showing, the window is a card, it doesn't have a title to it. So I'm using the window name as a storage for the JSON. So I know what perspective I need to go back to when I'm doing the refresh on the calendar. Excuse me?
Oh, we're just chuckling in an interesting way. Use the window name to keep all that variable information.
Yes. I remember what a few weeks ago, Tyler, we talked about, or Taylor, we talked about globals and stuff like that. And then I was going back and redoing quite a bit of this. And I said, well, doggone it. Why don't I just use the window name because it's not being shown? And so I used the window name to store the information. So if we look at this, you know, I'm taking that information now and I go back to my, what I call my schedule controller script, and I have those variables in there. Because when I first started out, when I click the button on the main page, I'm picking up what the project is. I'm picking up that's the initial run. And then one of the, I know that the user type is calendar when I'm setting there. And when I click selected month, I set the view to month. So those are the things that I need in order to go back and rerun that calendar and filter it. Also, what I'm going to do is show you how I'm using the same type of technique, using the status filter also, and the calendars when I'm doing my filter selection. So we have this information now, because when I have the card up, the information is going live into FileMaker, and all that I'm doing is I'm just holding this so that when I click the button to...
Let me ask you a question. Is this a way of tying the metadata to a window so you can have multiple calendars displayed at once?
Well, the thing is that you can have multiple calendars displayed at once. Anyway, it's just that you need to know when you're on that card window, what perspective, what are the settings that I have under the filter. So let's say that I do a close and refresh here. And I go over here to do the filter. Again, these filters are independent of one another. So I could literally have hundreds of different calendars open with hundreds of different status. And so what I have now is, if I look at my name of my window here, again, I'm holding very similar information for what calendar, what is the calendar I'm looking at? I'm looking at project. What's the first date of the calendar? Is this an initial? No, it's last date, status filter, and the calendar user interface, and the view is the month. So we'll go ahead. And this I think is the transporting, the carrying of the perspective of the window that you left, of that web viewer. Yes. So all that information is stored in the web viewer.
Okay.
So what we did is we build that JSON payload, and I come into here to
that string that you had.
But you have the JSON. I load this JSON payload, and it's probably not the cleanest thing that you ever looked at, but it carries the calendar, the same stuff that I have over there. So I'm using this JSON payload, and I pick it up, bring it over with my window, and all of a sudden I have all that information. So I have to build all that. I push it in there when I'm creating the calendar. I got to be able to pull it out. And I also have to be able to pull that out with using the functions that are available when dragging and dropping or clicking an event on the calendar. So if we looked at, the code, it looks something like this. So this is the code of a representative calendar that I have in there. And so I go ahead and I put that, I do a substitute on my JSON payload right here to get that information. And then I can, once I have that in there, I parse it out so that I can use it later on in my script. This is where I did the calendar payload, where the calendar information goes in with the substitution. And down here's where all the different effects are when I'm clicking on the navigation or when I'm dragging an event. and things like that. So I'm going ahead and capturing this data. I want to, when I drag in an event, I need to get the ID of the event that I pulling around. What's the calendar name? Is it, you know, and then I got the first date, last date, some offsets. And I take that information and I have it scripted in here so that I can name the JSON payload also includes all the names of the scripts in here. So I'm just setting those variables and getting the name of the scripts in here so I can go back and I can change the name of the scripts whatever I want to. So kind of what I have is in, let's see if we can get that to, in my, I have, these are the scripts that do all the action for in the calendar. It's a handful. That's all the scripts that we have. And some of these scripts only have one step in them because I needed to fudge a little bit to get a global variable out of one script so it could be used in another script. Maybe there's better ways to do that. But within all of this, I'm also set it up so that we're going to, given layouts, to get the names of the fields that we're going to either use as the fields that we're going to set, or the fields that we're going to search on, or the layout names. So this get event data is basically just one script, and we go ahead and get all that information from the JSON also. So the JSON comes back in, we go into the sync, I go back into the Syncfusion schedule controller, and this is where I start determining what calendar I'm on, and bringing in, because bringing in all that information with the JSON payload that you saw in the window name. It comes back in and it shows up in here as the JSON payload. So now I have that information and can run this script as a controller. So you can do the same thing can be applied for the filters. So let's say I'm sitting on the filters. Oh, I got, let's see here. Okay, got my windows. There it's coming. So now I have those names in here. I can click on, again, I'm using the window name as the place to store my information. I can click waiting, I can click begun. I come back over here and take a look at those values there. And now what we'll see that we have two different calendars picked up. We have beginning and waiting, and we have the dates and time, and we have the week. So it's set for a week. So when it goes back in there, it knows that, okay, I need to create a calendar that shows construction work orders, the project milestones that have a status of begun or waiting, and I want to display it in a week format. So the key thing here is carrying that JSON data about what's the perspective of what went into creating this particular view, and that's stored in the JSON payload. Then I need to bring that payload along with me so I can go ahead and set up the filters on that so I know what I have. So when I see this board right here, that it knows what it was set for, and then I can change these, and then it takes that window name and goes back over and runs the control script to then create the window again. So once I leave my page over here, this here can be set any place and do it from anywhere. So it's mutually exclusive except for the data. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I've done with the calendar. Now I got my beach ball again.
Lost part of your screen for some reason. I wonder why.
I've got the beach ball again.
Fred.
I was going so good for 20 minutes.
Work, work, connect.
So let's
Are you going to talk about pricing and stuff like that?
pricing on what?
Well, what you were doing, what you are doing, you know.
Well,
JavaScript.
Well, the thing is that the calendar has been our main focus for a long time. And when we started doing, we had the challenge of when we've been looking at doing our own calendar for some time. And the biggest challenge is always the Windows side and getting it to interact and display correctly. Well, now that we have that,
with the new Windows FileMaker Edge support, is it doing better on the calendaring stuff?
yes, we worked we started looking at this like in October, and I started developing it, and the anticipation that eventually we would have the WebViewer in Windows would work properly. And I was expecting that a lot earlier than later than when it came. And so FileMaker, I was in communication with Robert Holsey on and showing him what the challenges were that I was experiencing in the development of this. And they were unaware of the Syncfusion thing, so that we provided that information and also provided them the ability to see what the challenge was. But it's working fine in the Windows. And so we're getting, right now, this has not been rolled out, but we'll probably be doing that in the next month or so. And so what we want to, so the key thing here that I think the neat thing that I'm trying to convey is that you need to keep track of what your perspective is on this calendar. And that's where setting that JSON as that JSON in the web viewer, so that you can go ahead and pick that up and bring it with you to your card window, because we didn't want to do any development with Java. The objective was not to do any JavaScript development showing a window, because now you increase the complexity of, now I have to still get that information to FileMaker, by bringing up a window, a card window, I'm directly working in that, and all I have to know is what's my perspective of the calendar that I just left. And that's what that window naming does. And I'm using that throughout the other items that I'm showing here. Let's go ahead and close this for now. But before we go on, are there any questions? Before I go on and show you, the rest of them, as far as the job board and the Kanban, are going to use similar techniques. And so this one here was the most challenging. This is the one that we focused on to replace. The job board, we've had the job board in for quite some time. And what you have in the job board is okay. Not getting its attention.
What were you doing for calendaring before this?
Well, we were using the seed code calendar, the day back.
Okay, and what's the difference in feel or use between these? Or
well, what we wanted to do is mimic them as close to as possible. And that was the ability to drag and drop an event from one day to another, extend and contract it, move it from an all-day event to a partial day event and set the times on it with using the, you can also take that, you can also take, let's see if we can get that to. But you can also shrink an event on a calendar to change the time on it also. See if I can get this job board to show up here.
So I guess I have a question about your methodology on rendering the calendar.
Hello? I can't hear you.
Oh, I have a question about your methodology on rendering the calendar.
I can't, could you come up to the microphone on the computer a little bit better, please, or someplace?
There,
Thank you.
in the corner. Okay. Hi.
Hello.
My question is on the methodology you're using for rendering the calendar. So it looks like you're taking everything into FileMaker and then building it and refreshing. And in my experience, so I've had to build a lot of JavaScript charts and dashboards in recent years, and I've found that once the app gets to a certain size, it's better to just have some kind of an update function. And so I was wondering if you had done some testing with doing a perform JavaScript in WebViewer function versus.
Nope. That is on my list of things to look at. I have not done that at this time.
Okay.
Yes, there's other ways, because I eventually see the point here where I wouldn't even have to do a substitute. The substitute would be something that could be gone away completely, because I could set the I could somehow set the JSON payload variable there, and also all the calendar information. The focus is that I wanted to be able to get to this point. And yes, those are things that are on my list of ideas, so that I can go ahead and just do that update. So update the payload and then update the other stuff there. Also, right now, what I'm using here is I'm just using the normal FileMaker find and create an iteration over the found set. So yes, it works, but there's probably more efficient ways to do that, such as possibly calling as an SQL and getting my list of data that way and seeing how that does. But I took, to begin with, as far as me as a developer, I usually take what is the easiest thing that I can do to get it to work, and then I can start looking at what I can do to optimize it. And so the optimization is going to come like those things. And yes, I have thought of those things. I just have not done any action on those at this time. Okay. So, but I have been quite pleased with the speed on this. Now, granted, I'm working in a local area network here, but I can, a few seconds down to a half a second is what I'm seeing on some of these finds. Now, it's not a lot of data, but it's not doing any summarizing or anything like that. That sometimes can slow down as a find solution. So what I'm doing is finding and creating just a raw set of data.
Got it.
Does that help you out there?
It does. Yeah, my curiosity was just in seeing if it was faster to still try to pre-build the text and then stuff it into a web viewer.
Yes, I have not looked into that at this time. I'm looking for, right now, my point is that if I can get the presentation, if I can get the finds down, now the web viewer script stuff can be coming later for me. And first of all, this is one of my first big endeavors into using the WebViewer and JavaScript and understanding that. Now, some people are probably far better, looking at stuff and understanding how other libraries and stuff work or can understand that stuff. And I am not that expert in that area. I needed to, I spent a lot of time understanding what's going on and learning stuff and being able to ask the right questions to their technical support to get the information back to as far as what I needed to, what the function needed to do, what variables it need to gather when it did the click and stuff like that. And they were for me, they were very helpful in doing that. And so let's see, but I also have,
You had something?
Oh, if you're interested in playing, I've got a template out on my website that has a full calendar with the JavaScript. It's doing everything in JavaScript, but JavaScript is calling FileMaker, and FileMaker, using the JavaScript call to FileMaker, which is the idea that I was told was that you can supposedly do things faster in JavaScript than you can in native FileMaker. So, but getting them talking was always interesting versus just spinning the HTML. So, because I'm not a JavaScript person, but anyway, I was able to hack some code to make it work. It doesn't mean I knew what I was doing.
I wished I could be able to get to respond here to show the job board. And let's.
Start that. And then this one, the recording.
Okay. So sorry, I just can't get to the, oh, here we go. So now what we have here is in the job board, we have a list of all the milestones that are in there. And again, we have a list of, and what we want to do is be able to create a job board again. And this is using the data grid. And again, this here is set up with using FileMaker, the find, and iterating through those things instead of probably more efficient ways to do it. But for me, this was a big deal for me to get this. So what you normally see is in an office, you might come into an office and you have a whiteboard, and along the one side might be people or construction events. These are all construction locations. These are milestone sort IDs that going across here. And then what you can do is from this here, again, this is using their data grid, in that I can go ahead and I can click on an event and it brings up the same card as I had before. So again, this here is not fully developed like the schedule was, but again, the same concept will be applied where you fill out that information, you close it out, and it will repopulate that information as far as if you change the status from completed to something else. So this is a job board, and we've had a job board like this in our Pool Pro office since the beginning. But can you imagine how long that would take to build if you have 100 projects going down and you have 70 milestones going across? So you've got 7,000 individual records that you have to go and look at each and every time when a change is made. So it worked. It drew a pretty picture, but it was not a place to work in. We're using this technique with the data grid and the JavaScript. You can work in this, and it's responsive. So you got the same thing down here. You can go to various ones here. You can sort by job name. You can see all the items. And the top is frozen, so you know which job number you're on or which sort ID you're on. Now we tried to, one thing that we would love to be able to have done is be able to put the milestone name in there and turn it at a right angle, but it became challenging. So this is a job board using the information from FileMaker and using the Syncfusion. One other thing we have is we have the Kanban. And what we do here is we look at all the active projects, bring that information up, and create the swim lanes and all the projects that are in there. And this is all created dynamically. So you have the ability here that a customer can go ahead and create as many different milestones options as they want as far as status. And you can see these items in here. And also what you can do with this is I can take an event and I can drag it back over here and it will go ahead and update the FileMaker. I can go ahead and click on an item and it brings up that item. And you can see that we changed it to stalled. And you can then scroll down through all your projects here. So again, this is using the Kanban operations from Syncfusion to be able to show the information. So all these, everything is, the colors can be customized by the user, so they can change their colors and it will also be reflected in all of these boards. One last thing is I'd like to show is that we have the ability to and this one is the we have a Gantt chart. So now we have the Gantt chart here. Again, we have the ability to drag an item across. It goes ahead and will update FileMaker and refresh the screen. Again, this is not with the Java, the perform JavaScript. So, or what you can also come in and do is individually click on it. See information, double click, and again, it brings up the same card window that's being used to show the project with the job board or from the calendar or from the Kanban or whatever it might be. So it's just, there's a total of about, each layout, a layout for each calendar, and then you can go ahead and add your special items that you want to have on there. So again, you can change the information, close it out and refresh it. And so if you want to see it fit on one screen. So that's what I have to share with you folks today. I have more detail on this if you're interested. But I think we're running close to the end of time for you there, Taylor. Is that correct? Do you have any additional questions?
We don't have an exact time frame, but there is food here, so don't go too long.
Okay.
I didn't say that. We have time if you got more stuff to tell.
Well, just quickly,
How about this? Why don't you call up the calendar and when you make a change, turn on your script debugger. Is that calling a FileMaker script through a FMPUG URL, or is that? No,
this is all JavaScript. This is all. No, it's not FMP. It's not
JavaScript. Get it back into FileMaker.
It's not FMP URL at all.
Well, how does JavaScript save the data back into FileMaker? So
Hold on.
RESTful API or something? Or?
No. So, okay, let's go ahead and talk about that. Let's see if we can bring that up.
Devil's in the details.
The thing is, it's the same for all of these. So that let's say I bring this up again. Let's just
It's still refreshing at this end. We're just seeing blank.
this is not using any FMP URL. What it's doing is the key thing is the JSON payload that it's carrying around about the perspective about what it is. Okay.
So how does that data get from the JSON back into FileMaker?
Oh, because what it's doing is in the, okay, right in here, okay? Here I'm picking up a bunch of information. Let me see here. Let me see. Okay, here's an update event, okay? So when I click the calendar, it goes ahead and it gets me the ID for the object that I clicked on. In other words, the unique ID that was populated in the calendar from FileMaker. It takes the start time that is in the WebViewer from Syncfusion. It gets the start time. So this is all in Unix. This is in Unix. It gets me the schedule, the calendar name that I'm on there. I load in as part of the string because let's say you have multiple calendars on a given view. In other words, let's say you have construction work orders and you have the milestones. You have to know which calendar you clicked so that it can go and find that respective table and find that unique ID so that it can go ahead and set the start time, the end time, and things like that using a script right here that I loaded in the JSON so that I can change the name anytime that I want. So in other words, it's getting this, it's creating, a JSON payload that it's going to, that I'm going to take into,
You're using the FileMaker perform script,
yeah,
which is JSON. So you're telling JSON to run a FileMaker script.
No, I'm telling the JSON is just the payload of information that I need to have in order to update that particular event.
Well, right, but that's where when JSON runs that, it says run a FileMaker.
No, when FileMaker script says run this event right here, this event script.
Yep, that's the FileMaker script.
Yes.
That's not JSON, so it's
right. But this is
if you're in the calendar and you turn on your debugger and you resize one of those things, it's going to fire off a FileMaker script.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
With this data that it accumulated there.
Because there's other ways that JavaScript could be talking to the FileMaker database, and you're doing it through running a FileMaker script, which is that's how I've done it with like full calendar. But I mean, you can have JSON make an API call or some other connection or whatever.
But you see, the thing that this is just me, is I'm not that sophisticated of a developer. I wanted to, with the tools that I know and the tools that I have is what I use to do development. And that's what I understood. So that's the route that I took.
Right. It's a logical, that's the new tool that we have to have JavaScript pass information back. And then you have the script step in FileMaker to push things back into JavaScript.
Right, and that's the part the other gentleman had brought up that I have not looked at. I was focused on, okay, I want to get the presentation. I want to be able to interact with it. And then I can look at speed and other techniques in a bit. But these are the things that, you know, you got the update event arg, you have, you got the modify event. And so what it's picking this stuff up. So right here, you can see that I need when I do the modify, and this brings up just the edit card, you know, the edit, the card window. And then I've got the first state, the last state. So I'm picking up what I need to know about that so that I can do the modify and gather that information to put it in the window in the window name. And so this is the approach that I've used on all of these calendars and all of these presentations. Okay, just hold on here. Let's see. Okay, so those are the scripts that I use. This one here is the controller script. So this here script is the script that we interact with when we send some information, such as when we click a button, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to send it. Well, we're going to do a project. The calendar is going to be the project. It's the initial run so that we can go. This will go ahead and open up the web viewer. This here tells
This
me.
is Kathy T. I don't take your call right now. Please leave your name, number, and a brief message, and I'll return your call as soon as possible. Thank you.
Hi, Kathy. This is Dennis Burnham calling. Mark Miller suggested that I contact you. I've got a couple of open invoices.
Let's see if I can mute.
If I include the one that just went out the other day, there's 3 in total.
There we go. He's muted. We're good.
Okay, but anyhow, this is the JSON that kicks it all off to create my initial calendar. And then what we're doing is on every one of those layouts, as far as the card layouts, I'm going and getting the information about that perspective. So I do that before I even leave the FileMaker script, so that I can gather that information to create that in my JSON payload to provide it to the web viewer. Then I perform my script to get that, return my, and then I get a return of my results from that script. And I append those things on depending upon the number of calendars that I have selected. So this is just an example of a card with the layouts on the side and the names. You're all familiar with that. So that's how I go ahead and get my field names, so that I only have one script that I run for updating all of the data files. So that one script goes ahead and I get the pertinent information that I need. And it's one script, and based on the field names, it goes ahead and figures out what layout it needs to go on, and also the name of the field that's going to edit. And then I have in here, I have all the base codes. And again, this is me developing it. So we have the Kanban, we have the schedule, we have the grid. I'm also using you know, a dashboard type thing where they can take and put their mini charts on one. And then we have the substitute, and this is one where we could load it and then be able to, as the other gentleman said, instead of doing the substitute, do the JavaScript. And this here is an example of the inspect element. So you can see up here, again, this is just kind of a review about the technique of using the JSON payload. And then we have now to edit a single event and how the data travels for the window perspective and search criteria. That's that naming of the window. So you have that information there because we need to know what calendars we had in that view, the first date, last date, and the view that we're going to have. And these are the layouts that I have for this. And this is all the layouts that I have, plus the web viewer layout. So those are the card windows. And that's where I get the, this is the selector window where we're doing the filtering. And then we have the Syncfusion where we're doing the, getting the base code. And the job board was a replicate of this, and we kind of showed that. And the Kanban board, those are nice looking, right? You've probably seen a few of those in your day. So this is kind of replacement for that. And then the Gantt chart. So what did you want to see there, Taylor?
Oh, I was just, because I was just seeing how things were triggered. I was just gonna see if you had a calendar open, turn the script trigger, script debugger on, and then change the size of things and watch things
Okay.
back and forth.
Okay.
And then also discuss issues about, where you're trying to things update in either Java, the WebViewer or FileMaker, what all you do to keep them synced, or do you just, is it just refreshed when it's open once? There's always those kind of challenges.
Okay, so let's just kind of see what we have here. Okay, so let's say that I will turn my, hopefully this works okay. So let's say that we go ahead and we're going to do the cable locates, and we're just going to extend that. Okay. So what it's going to do is actually in between here, when it's doing a drag and drop like this, it actually goes to the card window and brings all that information along and uses the card window just as if you clicked on the event individually to go ahead and do that. There may be better ways, but it's the way that I used. So now if we take a look at our so when we drag that information, we got the ID, the unique ID of that item. We got the start time and the end time. We got the offset because it comes across as the Unix, the calendar that we're working on, and the type of thing and the view that we had. Because when we come back, we want to be able to refresh that calendar again. Again, you'll see along the way here that we will go ahead and we're setting these, okay. So what it does now is it looks and sees what type of calendar I have. If it's a what type of calendar it is. And it'll do the new window. And it uses the same thing here. It's just that you don't see it when it's doing that. And it will go ahead and then do the update to that window based on, again, we set the, we got to carry our data with us, and that's where we bring that data back in again so that it's available in this window and the information that we need. So we can go ahead and set the variables that we're searching for. You gotta find the object or the event. Set the window title, because that's where we're going to gather our information about what we're going to do when we go back to refresh that window. And so what we're going to do now is just set this information. And as you set the information, it will get updated. And you drag it. And it'll close the window, and it will form that controller script, and it will do the, goes back to controller script. We get the information about the payload again. Not the right one there. So we'll have the information, first and last date, the offset, the calendar, if it's initial view, and if there's a month, the view that we want to view at. So it runs through this. It runs through the same script again as if we had just clicked that button on the main page to initially set up the calendar. So it's using that card layout to do the update. As with most things in FileMaker, there's probably 20 different ways to do the same thing.
All right.
Any other
So
questions
these-
there, Taylor?
Yeah, Sync Master, tell us about, is this something you license from them? Do they have support? Do they help you? Or is it just like, I mean,
No, the
I
key
use Full Calendar because it's free and there was absolutely no help. So, you know.
at this here, if you go to SyncFusion,
Oh,
you
Sync
can do everything that I have for free if you want to. Now, if you need technical support as far as understanding things about how would I get this information out of the, where do I get this in, when I'm looking at, how do I get that information out of the web, where's that web viewer information? What are the variable names? It's the documentation will have that in there. So you could start today using this and be able to get things out if you are a JavaScript expert. And you'll probably understand it far better than what I did. But yes, and then what we're doing is we're paying for annual support. The annual support for the first year was about $1,000. And then the subsequent year is about a 40% discount or something like that. So, and the way I've used, they have an online support. Now they have a bunch of other products also that do cost money if you want to use them, that you can bring in-house and deploy. But the one that I was looking at was just the JavaScript. So they also have an online, online chat support. And that is not as sophisticated as being able to create an incident, but it may help you get in the right direction. In order to get the online technical support, you have to, that requires the annual support also, because I check it against an email account and stuff like that. So the library, you could start using the libraries for today. And if you, let's see if we can bring that up.
Not a good sign.
Okay, so you can go to each one of these. Let's say we want to go to the scheduler. And this, no login required. And this is where you can start, and it gives you all the URLs for the libraries. Once we load it there. And you can take it over to, they have this Stack Blitz where you can edit and do your stuff over there, creating your code. You can see the source. You can both see the, so you can start using this right out of the box, using that information. So if you took this, copied and pasted it, build it out with the information that you need, it would run for you right out of the right out of a text editor. And that's kind of how I've done some of my development and testing, is create my payload, create my URL, load it in, and begin evaluating.
Okay, cool. Well, sounds like you and I'll need to do a little comparison of this with full calendar someday. So, but certainly have learned some things. Anybody else have any questions of Gerard before we wind things down? Oh, everybody's muted. Okay, well, this is, we're gonna wind things down then. I see there's a question. Andy Kanaski asks, I've used seed code calendar and printing has been an issue with Gantt charts. We've had issues with that. So Andy was asking about printing. Have you tried, does this support printing?
They have printing in here. It didn't work for me, but I wasn't using printing in the seed code, but I would love to be able to look at that. I would love to be able to push that to FileMaker and say, what's going on here that we can't, we can't, if I take the code out and I put it in the text editor and I load it up in Safari, it will print. But once I go into the WebViewer in FileMaker, I lose the printing capability. So it's the print routine outside with the same code works, but in the WebViewer in FileMaker, it does not work. That has been my experience with this. I have evaluated that.
Okay. Well,
So yes, that would be great to print. You can also do exports, all kinds of exports and PDFs and stuff like that also. But again, once you go into the WebViewer in FileMaker, I don't know what's going on there to make it to work.
Okay. Well, sounds good. Okay, well, thank you, Gerard. We appreciate you giving us our little presentation here. I've learned a couple of things. Appreciate you taking the time to do this. We'll look forward to having everybody back next month for the first Friday meeting. You'll be stuck with me doing the presentation this next month. So we'll look forward to seeing you then. By the way, if you do come to the in-person meeting here at Harmonic, there is an RSVP if you want to do lunch. So you need to, that will be in the invite that will come out to everybody that we'll be sending out. So if you're an in-person visitor, be sure to RSVP if you're going to actually come. If not, you got to sit at home and make your own sandwich like Dennis does. Right, Dennis? So,
Taylor, I'm going to ignore that and ask you, are you going to keep the meeting going after you stop the recording?
Not for long, but I will stop the recording here shortly. And then if there is any comments we can have, I'll hold on there for a minute. So I'm going to stop the recording now because we've kind of got to that point. So here we go. I'm stopping the recording right now. Take care. See everybody next month. Bye.